right, a Sunday night special in Hamilton. Hit that anvil, Kwesi Poku. Few players in the Canadian Premier League are hotter right now. And Forge coming away with a hard-fought 2-1 victory over Pacific. A beautiful night in southwestern Ontario. It's about time for your favorite show on One Soccer. It's
Match Night!
Gareth Wheeler, Jordan Wilson. Christian Jack is back. John Conway sat in that chair last week. Good to have you back, KJ.
Thank you.
I know how happy you are to be here with us right in this very moment. Plenty to get into tonight. We'll reflect on Canada at the Copa America. The Canadian Championships were played this week. The first leg between two CPL sides and two MLS sides. And Bill Manning out at Toronto FC. All that upcoming. But first, the week that was of the Canadian Premier League. We're through 14 weeks. We are literally halfway there. Look at the away sides. Atletico Ottawa 3, Vancouver 0. York United go to Atco Field in Calgary, which is a difficult ask. And they come away with a 2-1 victory, a late consolation goal for Tobias Warszewski there. And the match that you just watched, your Tony Bet match of the week, Forge 2 and Pacific 1. Here's your up-to-date table. Forge jumps over Vancouver. They jump over Pacific into third place. They do have a game in hand. The three winners this weekend are the top three in the Canadian Premier League table. No game this week for Valor and Halifax. Pacific rolled out to a 1-0 lead through 45 minutes, but second half, it was one-way direction. And Forge coming away with the victory. Kwesi Poku now has 6 goals in his last 5 games. His second half brace gives Forge the full 3 points. KJ, what's the bigger storyline here? Is it Forge coming away with the victory, or is it the emergence of Kwesi Poku?
I think it's got to be Poku. I mean, Forge finding a way to do it again from a losing position is always something that they've been very good at. I think that's the 4th time now that they've come back from a losing position to gain points. They've got 8 points, but you know, for them to go behind, and you could see Bobby Sminiotis' face, they weren't content with the way they played in the first half. Losing that penalty, obviously, with a rare mistake by Awolabi Belleru for Saluf to be Mr. Automatic from the spot. But I think the way they came out with purpose and intent and to score a goal right after half-time, and it just goes to show you what Poku has emerged to become. And you can see him here as a number 9. And he's a true number 9 because what he does is he holds his run and it's like one-touch finish. Now, Poku, you mentioned, he's got 6 goals in his last 5 games. 4 of those goals have been one-touch finishes. The other 2 have been 2-touch finishes. So this is a player that has just really learned how to be on instincts, Jordan. And I'm you know, to see it sometimes just fall to you like this, you know when it's hot, when sometimes the ball knows where to find you.
Players, good players, are in the right place at the right time more often than not. And this is what we're seeing with Kwesi Poku. But it's this confidence when he's striking the ball. Let's just talk about the first goal. That has no business going in, Gareth Wheeler. He's at the first post. There's a player on his hip. He has to open up his body. We see players all the time opening up either too much or you're going in that direction. He just squeezes that one in. It's like he's been doing this all season. I watched Kwesi Poku. We all watched him last year, and he was a replacement in some ways for Ashton Morgan as a left back. Wanted to get him on the touchline, getting forward, get crosses in. Now he's the one receiving that service and scoring these goals and getting Forge to where they need to be. So for me, that's sensational because that is not easy to do, to literally switch positions and be on the receiving end and playing that well.
There was a hint of offside in that first goal. We'll give it to him. No VAR in the Canadian Premier League, but this could be a real difference maker for Forge that they found this player. And the player, quite frankly, has taken advantage of his opportunity because he just felt like with Taron Campbell, Jordan Hamilton, they have resumes, they have pedigree, but they needed something a little bit more fresh. And now this makes this Forge side even that much more dangerous, Jordan.
Absolutely. I still think that either Jordan Hamilton, obviously Taron Campbell, he's injured, but he needs help, right? I feel like if you're going to go down the stretch, if you're going to go and try to get the double, even the triple, you need someone else to step up for them.
KJ, this was a tricky spot for both sides coming off Canadian Championship games midweek. So I'm not sure the way that you look at the performances by both sides today because it was a difficult one. For Pacific, they were in Ottawa last week and went back, played Whitecaps, then back out to Hamilton. And Forge, with all the headlines that they made this week, could have been a little bit of a trap game for them.
Yeah, definitely. If you're Pacific, you'd have taken a draw before it, the way that they came out and defended, you could see that. But once you go in at half-time 1-0, for you to come away with nothing, you'd be very disappointed. I think at times they had a lot of the game where they wanted it to be, played in the right moments. They just lack that Poku, right? They lack that player right now who can score a goal out of nothing. So for Forge, again, they find a away, and suddenly you look at that league table, it's Ontario 1, Ontario 2, Ontario 3, and suddenly Forge are like, hold on, we're the kings of Canada, not just of Ontario. We want to get to the top spot.
Rest of Canada will not like that whatsoever. And let's speak about Ontario 2. That is York United. Under Benjamin Mora, this team is absolutely moving in the right direction. 4-1-1. Their latest win came over the weekend, a 2-1 victory against Cavalry. This team just continues to rack up points over the course of the way. Their owners, the Pascal brothers, came out and said that this team has one of the best squads in all the Canadian Premier League. And all of a sudden, these pieces are coming together nicely, Jordan.
They are. Look, there's never been a time, 14 games in, halfway through the season. First of all, we just need to mention, has there been a free kick goal this season? There hasn't, in my recollection, and this one is the best of the bunch, obviously, but look how he strikes that. But looking at this team, 14 games in York United, 23 points. They've never sat this pretty. You expect York for me, towards the last games of the season, that's where they scrounge and they get some points. But to have this many points so early, KJ, could this be the year? Like, York for me is looking like the real deal.
Yeah, I'm the same with you. You know, for me, defensively, they are far superior than they were earlier in the season. They really brought in Leon and Sterling have been excellent together. And Abatney played for the first half yesterday. They made a change at halftime. Even though they were the better team, they made the tactical switch. A couple of decisions could have gone the wrong way against Cavalry. Again, that's the season they're having right now, though. But for me, York were always a talented team that never played united. And now York United are finally united, and you can see them all buying in, and it's allowed the talent to just express themselves.
Another special moment, 16-year-old Shola Jimo scored a goal. He's 16 years of age. It's not just like Lamine Yamal here. It's Jimo scoring here in the Canadian Premier League, second youngest goal scorer. So everything moving in the right direction for them. Is it time that we start to push the panic button just a little bit when it comes to Cavalry? We've been waiting for this team to string together multiple wins in a row, and it's just not happening, Jordan.
Well, it just depends. Depends what you really expect from this team. Like,
well, I think expected to be good.
I expected them to be good, but people expected them to go and win back-to-back, right? And I think that's done and dusted. I don't think, one, there's a team better than Atletico Ottawa, but just off of how they've played, I don't think that they're winning the league. However, playoffs for me are still on the table. They haven't done well, but they're still a game away from being where they need to be, which is around the third place, around the second place. It's bigger issues of how they play. I don't think they can have matches like they had this past weekend against York United, where they weren't the better team, where they weren't clicking, where they didn't defend well. If you look at our second goal, not to take anything away from the young man who scored, but the Cavalry side, you know, or that we know, is hard to beat.
It's a terrible goal to give away.
Terrible goal. You can see the life. I'm looking at body language, which I'm huge on. Klomp, everyone else, very disconnected. That is one you have to brush off, KJ, and the next week you have to be better, and they have to find a way to go and finish off teams.
Just got to finish it off. That's the way it is. They've got to find ways to score. They're not scoring enough goals, any goals really, from set pieces like they did last year, which is a huge part. They're not finding ways to start games well and get in the lead. And once you can get in the lead, we saw it last week against Valor. Once they get in the lead, they're fine. They're a confident team that defend very well, but you can't get that goal early. They can't find ways to score. Their biggest hurdle right now for me is that what we're doing. Everyone refers to what they are last year. It's over. It's forgotten about. They're nowhere near the same team. Significant injuries for that reason. They've got to figure out now how to get this season to be successful and how to make sure they get in the playoffs. Because once they get there, then people will say, yeah, you can do it again. We know you're a big game team. But right now, forget what they did last year. You've got to move on. It's halfway through. We're halfway through 24.
Exactly. They just haven't been. They haven't been poor. They've just been stuck in first or second gear. You got to get out of it and show a little bit more. Atletico Ottawa bounced back after losing 1-0 at home last week against Pacific. They go to Vancouver and beat the Eagles 3-0. Balou Tabla scored his second goal of the season. Sammy Salter scored his second goal of the season. And Ruben Del Campo, joint best in the CPL at 7. Ben Fisk, one of the nicest men alive for Vancouver, called the performance, the defending, I should say, of Vancouver, embarrassing. What do you make of Vancouver's recent form? In their last 4 games, they've lost 4-0, they won 2-1, they drew 3-3. And now they lost 3-0 again, KJ?
Yeah, I've had major concerns about this team defensively without the ball all season. Same as last year, they conceded far too many goals. They're wide open. To be fair, they were in the game in the first half. A couple of things could have gone their right way. They could have had a penalty. That's a bad goal to give away. Obviously, we're watching this game. I felt for Cowan, he's had a good season. They'll want that back. But for me, it was an almost textbook performance by Atletico Ottawa again, and it's not the textbook away performance where they sat deep.
Yep.
They took it to them, and they've got players who can control games.
But it's also the home form of Vancouver. Like, they haven't scored a home goal now in 3 games. Like, they're trying to build that up. It's a newer team in the Canadian Premier League, and they have players, KJ, that can go out and score as well.
They're not young anymore either. By the way, they've made a decision this year that they've got to be able to win and get into the playoffs. And a lot of the young players are not getting their opportunities as much to bring in the veterans, and that was their decision. So they've got to make it work and stay in this playoff.
So Atletico Ottawa keep that 5-point gap above everyone else across the Canadian Premier League. Jesse Marsh addressed the Canadian Premier League in his comments on Wednesday after they fell to Argentina in the semifinal of the Copa America. Spoke about the Canadian Premier League and pathways for future players. Here's what Jesse Marsh had to say.
Should be playing as many young players as they possibly can. There should be rules for me, and we have to go through all this, but there should be rules about how many young players are on the pitch. And again, when I mean young players, I don't mean 22-year-olds. I mean 17, 18, 19-year-olds. There needs to be a way to put more responsibility on young players, to challenge them for what the highest standards of games are. I mean, this has been the biggest thing that I've tried to do with this player pool that I have, is more sprinting, more running, more initiating contact, more winning duels, more like understanding what the highest level is. And when you play Argentina, when you play France, and you can see the speed of play, the power at which the best players play at, that's where we need to go, because we actually have the athletes in this country. We do, but we need to now develop them in a way where they understand high-level football.
There you go. Some comments made by Jesse Marsh about the Canadian Premier League. Stefan Eustachio made comments after the 2-0 loss to Argentina as well. What do you make of Marsh's comments there, KJ, on the Canadian Premier League's future and the role that it will play?
First of all, every credit to a national team manager who continues to make the Canadian Premier League a topic of discussion, which is very important. The other thing I would say is that I understand why he would say what he has to say, but it cannot just be what the Canadian Premier League can do for the Canadian national team. We've all got to work together in this. And if it just strictly became a league played by 17, 18-year-olds, then I'm sorry, nobody would watch that. It's a business that they have to create here. And they've created a business where I believe at just over 24 years of age, they're the youngest major league in CONCACAF, or one of. They're far younger than MLS and Liga MX.
Yeah, Liga MX is average age of 27, MLS 26 and a half, and the CPL is 24.6.
Right, yeah, so there you go. And so for me, they're giving Canadians opportunities. They already have rules about 2,000 minutes per season for Canadians to play. And so they have to find a balance, right? We're seeing a great thing. We'll use Hamilton tonight as an example. We're seeing what they're doing in midweek where they beat Toronto FC. We saw Cavalry beat the Whitecaps. We've seen 3 teams in a row beat the CPL opposition. Forge went to Montreal. If those things are going to happen and we're going to create those environments for success, you have to allow the players like Chouanier, Borges, Becker, those opportunities to play. Jordan Wilson had the opportunity to play in this league because of that, because you're building something substantial. They go to play in CONCACAF and they play very well in that. So it cannot just be a feeder academy league. Although I understand what Jesse's saying, we need to understand that we're creating a culture in the sport in this country that is not strictly for the independent need of the national team.
And great teams, if you're looking at the Canadian Premier League, are the ones that have that balance. Young players emerging, but players to look up to. Having just young players without other players that have played at other places, have their own style, can bring that big brother attitude to a team, it's crucial. I think Jesse Marsh is getting a taste of the Canadian talent, but for me, it's always been about the environment in which you have players and can really cultivate and get them going. And it's growing, right? I think obviously more teams in this beautiful country in the CPL would help, but that's really where we're headed.
Beyond that, Jesse even acknowledged when I chatted with him earlier today that he's relatively new to the Canadian Premier League as well, right? So he will learn what this league is all about and what it can do for the national team and otherwise moving forward. I look at the Canadian Championship that was played on Wednesday. The 2 MLS sides started the minimum number of Canadians in those games, 3. And 2 of the players that each one of them played was the backup goalkeeper. That's not the way forward for the national team programs either. So I don't think it's just on the Canadian Premier League. The MLS sides need to play a role as well.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've always said it, right? The MLS is not a Canadian league. You have Canadian franchises, but in terms of building up those players, and this is the importance of CPL, but you'd want to see a situation, KJ, where there are more Canadian players, because it's not about talent. I mean, I think we could say that Canadians can play soccer, we can play football. It's just about being in an environment to be successful.
Well, this is why, I mean, Jesse Marsch hopefully will make a big difference inside his own organization. As I said earlier on our pregame show, he is somebody with experience of high-level football around the world who can take those experiences and help mold this Canadian soccer to make a step that when he leaves, he's made that significant difference. You alluded to it. The Canadian Championship has three. This is, you know, Jesse talking earlier. The Canadian Championship has rules where 3 Canadians must start, right? Why can't we have 3 Canadians that have to be on the field all the time? Right away, that should be a rule. You should have to have 3 Canadians on the field all of the time. So look, I understand that this conversation, it's great that we're talking about the CPL, but Canada Soccer also needs to ask themselves, you know, ask not what they can do for us, ask what can you do for them.
Absolutely.
Well said.
But by the way, this whole idea of like this junior hockey model, like that's why League Ones are being established across this entire country as well. And if CPL can be a bridge or provide more or different opportunity, then so be it. I think it's a win-win-win for everyone. By the way, very cool that Marsch, the day after being in a Copa America in Charlotte, North Carolina, he's in Hamilton, Ontario for a CPL game. That's leadership right there. Well done, Jesse Marsch, and I'm sure soccer fans across the country are going to really take notice of that. We'll walk through what was Canada's journey through the Copa America. What a performance against Uruguay. Wasn't enough in the end as they fell in penalties, but plenty to ponder about where this team goes from here. We'll do just that. That's next here on Match Night.
Do we really have any choice at all?
Everyone has a choice, and every choice has a consequence.
Which do you choose?
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
How do you choose?
Power doesn't sound like it used to. The all-electric ID4 with instant acceleration. Electric feels good.
Volkswagen.
This ultimate mouth-watering moment is brought to you by the big, bold, ultimate taste of Ultimate Chicken Hot Dogs, only from Maple Lodge Farms.
For sport played with our feet, funny how lending a hand takes us further together.
Look, we came to this tournament in a new process, right? I've been on the job for like, I don't know, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. I've thrown a ton of information at them. Tactical information, psychological information about how we're going to develop and step by step to take them through a process to make them the team that I know they can become. They've committed to it better than any group I've ever had, and they're all in. They do everything they can every day to push themselves, to support each other, to meet the standards that I'm setting for them. And I would give our performances overall incredibly positive.
That was a really fun few weeks of Copa America action, and Canada front and center in the middle of it. In the third place game against Uruguay on Saturday night. Jesse Marsch names a changed team going up against the Uruguay side that was very strong and very angry heading in. They concede early and your expectations drop. Then Kone and David score. And they're holding on at the end just to give up a 90th minute +2 goal to Luis Suarez, then inevitably lose in a penalty shootout. Yet through it all, you come away with it with a really positive feeling when it comes to Canada and where this program will go under Jesse Marsch. This is O Canada, O Baby, presented by CIBC. Wheeler, Wilson, KJ with you. We'll start with Saturday night, and then we'll move from there. KJ, what were your thoughts about Canada's performance against Uruguay?
First of all, it was just a really fun game. And third and fourth playoff games often are, by the way. And it was great that Canada played their role in that. I mean, it starts for me with Ismail Kone, who was just it was just an absolute midfield masterclass for me to see somebody play like that and go up against one of the greatest midfielders in the planet in Fede Valverde and Betancourt, and obviously class players that play at the highest level, and to see what he's able to deliver was really, really special. I hope Canada knows just how special of a player they've got there. But all in all, just to see them go toe-to-toe in that environment against a savvy Uruguayan team. Look, they didn't get over the line by winning it, but I didn't really mind at the end. It was more about just the lasting impact about what they were able to do rather than the outcome.
Yeah, it was such an exciting match. I feel like a big takeaway for me are 2 goals. Everyone's talking about goals and that needs to be scored in regular time, and that's what happened. Kone's goal, beautiful. Like, we don't know his ceiling, but in terms of someone taking over in midfield and adding to the offensive end, he did that. Even with the second goal, his driving run, he was the one that orchestrated that. But then just looking at this team, where they are and game management that needs to be added, right? You score in the 80th minute, you're up 2-1, and just looking at that match as well. I was watching it at home and just thinking, Canada playing like they need to go and score a third, right? What does that look like in the future? To know when you're up 2-1 against maybe whatever air quote, a better side, really to pack it in and to do the things you need to do to take this thing out of the game. But I think these past weeks have been a surprise for everyone, a beautiful surprise, just because everyone's known the talent within the team, but to see them come together so quickly, it's been a breath of fresh air.
I think that's fair criticism, which comes in the last game of the tournament about this Canadian side. Just they need to take that experience, learn how to finish games, but that's not necessarily the way that Jesse Marsch wants to play. But the way that he wants to play and the way that his team did play, a lot of different players rose to the occasion, Jordan. Like, this is the thing. It's not like, oh, Fonzie and David and it's a collective. Like, there were so many even with a highly rotated team. Alistair Johnson was sensational. Thought that Ali Ahmed coming in was great. Schaffelberg, obviously, one of the stars of the tournament. The collective gives you belief that this team's going to be stronger moving forward.
Absolutely, without question. I think that's probably the biggest lesson or the underlying factor when you look at these games is we're begging, asking, pleading for this team to get on the same page, and everyone is bought in, everyone is locked in, everyone is contributing. People are coming off this, if they're starting, the high fives to the people that are coming on. Everyone is ready to chip in. And again, I'm huge on body language and how people react to each other, KJ. And they are locked in and want to really push for the badge. And this is all you want, because if you can start from there, then the rest can be taught.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is why when I sat down with Jesse Marsch in a number of interviews, but the first one that I did in Atlanta, I didn't want to talk about tactics. And for 20 minutes, we talked about life and people, and how you work with people and how you manage it, and his love for the job. And that's why when we talked about the search for the next manager of Canada, a lot of talk turned the moment Jesse Marsch got to it about his on-field identity. And I always felt it was the wrong thing to talk about first. The first thing that we needed to talk about was how did he bring a group together, unite together, and believe. And he did that. They genuinely believed. They had so much self-confidence in every game. And you could say that, yes, okay, they did in the previous era, but a lot of that came from a different part of their time, where it was time for the brotherhood and to get behind the country and start to believe in where they've come from, because they came from very little. This was very different term now. This was not a honeymoon phase. This was, you have done this, we need to mold you, and how do we make you better? And his self-awareness and his investment in people, his listening skills, his ability to give people direct information, and his communication skills has responded better and resonated better with these players than we could ever imagine. And then subsequently, if you do that and you invest in people off the field, they will pay you back way more on the field.
The context is important as well, because it was a turbulent 2 years on and off the field that they needed to come together and show what they were capable of. So that's the foundation. Jesse said he's only been in the job 8 or 9 weeks. But I think that Canada watched on. It wasn't just the results. It was how they went about their business as well that gives faith that the foundation laid thus far is sustainable. It's one that's built on strength. Yet, you can look at the other side of the equation, take the emotional side out. They won 1 game over the course of Copa America within 90 minutes. So the question is, KJ, where do they go from here?
Well, I think they continue down the path of what they've done, which is a self-assured, mature, grown-up side. And, you know, for me, they didn't need to stand up to referees in a way where they lost control, emotional control of moments. And when you don't lose emotional control of big moments, ultimately when those moments shrink and the outcomes need to still be the same, you will be in more control of those. We now know what the future is Mexico and the US. We know that that's the next frontier, right? Two very big teams, teams that are not very happy, by the way, if you listen to their media, and they're not very happy with us here in Canada either.
I'm sure we're changing the coaches as well.
Too bad, right? Let us have our time for a change. We have to listen to you enough. So you know what I mean? So like for me, it's like now it's time to go then show them what they can do in September, and then hopefully get a home game, and then start turning the attention to significant moments in 2025, Nations League final and Gold Cup, 2 big moments that they absolutely will believe that they can win and that they haven't won under obviously during these players.
We've seen discipline in this tournament, which I'm a huge fan of, because I think that should be literally the pillar that you build a team off of, right? Everyone buying in. But I think there needs a sprinkle of joy. And what I mean by that is just about doing the things that everyone loves when you see this team play, how they go forward, how they take their chances. I'm not asking for everything all at once. I also think it could be detrimental having everything at once, right, so quickly. I think it's building blocks slowly but surely, and in international football, you have major tournaments to go and do that. But if it's a Gold Cup in 2025, it's like you have that discipline, but that joy and taking care of things offensively, I want to see a bit more of that. But all in due time, Gareth Wheeler.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to happen all at once.
These players are household names today, July 14th, 2024.
Well,
how do we maintain them to be household names? That is the next step, and everybody plays a part. Everybody who's watching this right now, anybody who's running a club, running a network, deciding on what you're going to put in your highlight pack, everybody plays a part. These players deserve all the attention they get. It's on them. Let's build them up. We cannot let them disappear as they go back to that. They are still playing football. Jonathan David just played his 59th competitive match of this season as he goes away now. God bless him, to put his feet up somewhere for 2 weeks, hopefully. We need to make sure that these players continue. We've all heard it. We're in the game. People messaging us all the time. Oh, watch this player. I like this player, this guy. Yep. This guy's my guy now. We've all heard it from people that didn't follow this sport. Now they have. We cannot hear it for the first time next time in 2 years.
The off-field stuff can't be adversarial. And KJ, you said it's the most important thing for me over the next little bit. Home games. That's how you build relationships. See this team live in the flesh in our own backyard again. These home games have just gone away. We need to be able to have games across this country to get markets excited. As for the tournament itself, I mean, plenty of criticism about the way the tournament, Copa America, was run, which was highlighted in a lot of negative ways tonight as the Colombia-Uruguay game was delayed. The Argentina-Colombia game was delayed. But Marsh, Bielsa, a number of coaches were calling out problems throughout the tournament. Here's what Marsh had to say about Copa America and the way that they experienced it.
For me, this tournament has not been professional for me. We've had our players be headbutted. We've had racial slurs thrown at our players live and through social media, and not just the situation with Moyes, but the entire tournament from opponents' fan bases and from whether it's live or in social media.
We've been treated like second-class citizens, and in the entire time, I've challenged our team to stay disciplined and stay focused on our task at hand and to make sure that we represent ourselves and our country, because in the end, that's what this is. This is about representing your nation. You're on the national team, and our players have held themselves to the highest level of integrity.
They absolutely have, and that's part of the reason there's a real love affair going on right now with Canada, because of the way that they've held themselves. But from the ugly scenes afterwards, Uruguay, Colombia, to the pitch conditions, to the treatment of players, what we saw Sunday night, this is a cup final in a country that's going to play co-host for the 2026 World Cup. This is CONMEBOL's tournament, but this is being staged, hosted, attended on U.S. home soil. What do you make of all this? I mean, this has to be, at the very least, disconcerting, considering where we're going to be in 2 years from now.
Wheels, you don't know this about me, but I've done a few musicals when I was a kid, or acting or whatever, and you have the dress rehearsal, where you have to get things in order. You have to get close to how things will be. This is the dress rehearsal, okay, Jay? We're about to host or co-host a World Cup in 2026. And this is how things are going into that in 2 years. You're thinking that you want to have things in place, and it just hasn't seemed that way in this tournament.
It's difficult because, I mean, I can only talk about first-hand experience. So being at the Copa America for the group stages, it didn't feel like, how do I word this? I've been blessed to cover and go as a supporter to many United States events. It didn't feel like it was controlled and run as brilliantly as often you see in the United States. It felt much more like a chaotic South American tournament that was different on a different soil. Right from the moment we got there was lots of concerns on our social media about people getting the right passes and going in the right areas and all of that. I saw it all for myself, fans getting in at the wrong entrances. So in many ways, I know how FIFA organizes things very differently, and I would imagine that it would be very different in 2026. That says nothing, takes nothing away from the scenes and the ugly ones that we do. I feel for the supporters because very often they're the last ones who get the voice. They're the first people who get blamed for everything, and they're the last ones who get the voice, and they are treated terribly in moments like this. So, look, it just needs more people to talk about how disorganized it was. But I would be cautious in saying that this would look very similar to what it would be in the World Cup. Having been to World Cups and experienced them, this was nothing like that. And having seen how the United States usually handle sporting events, I would certainly lean on it being very different.
Yeah, and FIFA as well. We should remind you, at the UEFA, the Euro final in 2021 at Wembley, it was a nightmare as well. For me, it's a 60-team World Cups, more stadiums, more training pitches. The state of the fields, let alone other stuff to do with security and organization, the fields were nowhere near good enough. Like, this stuff needs to be rectified ahead of 2026. It's already going to be a difficult tournament with 60 teams in it. A much smaller tournament is about to take place. The Canadian women are about to start their Olympic adventure on Saturday on One Soccer. It was a training match as Canada took on Australia in Marbella, Spain. It was behind closed doors, I believe. They went a goal down, ended up getting goals through Nichelle Prince and Evelyn Vienne to beat Australia 2-1. Jordan, what's your main takeaway from the Canadian performance?
The Canadians pride themselves on defending well, right? They need to go and make sure that they attack. And here, Nichelle Prince, it's nice to see her get on the board and just attack that and be in the right place at the right time, because she's been out through injury. But going into this tournament, what they're going to pride themselves on, Wheels, is being hard to beat. I mean, being a team that defends well and picks their moments and have players to step up. You'll take the 2-1 win, but I guess with this 18-player roster, where certain players have a question mark, you're just hoping that they're healthy in time and they can really compete to the best of their ability.
Brilliant. Canada's Olympic journey starts in a couple weeks from now, and we're really looking forward to that, of course. It's a 48-team World Cup. I'm adding teams. I'm adding the 12 teams from the Olympics into the... Oh, jeez. It's been one of those days. One Nation, good news. They'll get their facts right on One Nation Tuesday, hopefully 7 p.m. Andy Petrillo and Jordan Wilson will be bringing it this Tuesday. Any special guests lined up?
I don't think so. I got to check the calendar, to be honest.
Okay.
It's been a lot.
Let's put TBD.
You're special enough.
Thank you, KJ.
TBD.
Hey, let's go somewhere beachy. I don't like sand. What? What about Cancun sand? It's so soft. Or maybe Caribbean white sand. Sure. Ooh, Costa Rican sand. It's got dolphins.
Costa Rica, then?
Yeah, Costa Rica.
Good choice.
It was all him.
With over 50 sunny destinations to choose from, we have a flight for that.
Power doesn't sound like it used to. The all-electric ID4 with instant acceleration. Electric feels good.
Volkswagen.
Tony Bet. Tony Bet, get treated like a VIP. Bet on live games with odds on all sorts of sports. That's what you get when you bet with Tony Bet.
Big news at Toronto FC this week. On Thursday morning, after their 2-1 defeat to Forge in the Canadian Championship, Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment announced they would be parting ways with club president Bill Manning. Manning's tenure lasted just shy of 9 years. He won an MLS Cup with Toronto FC in 2017. Really, since COVID hit, Toronto FC has been going in one direction, and it's not the right way. And inevitably, Bill Manning is out at the club. There have been plenty of flashpoints for Toronto FC in recent vintage. KJ, where did all of this go wrong for Manning at Toronto FC?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's never nice to talk about people losing their jobs, right? We never want that. I will say this about him, as it says in the statement, a really good man, right? At the end of the day, he was very kind, and I think as somebody who wasn't brought up here, really took on the Canadian lifestyle and really was always passionate about that. And I know he's very passionate about 2026. But ultimately, I'm going to show you a stat that I've been looking at. And when you get the numbers like this, there is no hiding from it, right? This is the points from all MLS Eastern Conference teams since 2021. And the amount of wins and the amount of points. No team has spent more money on that board than the one right at the bottom. Ooh. Nobody has spent more money, and it's not close. And this is 3.5 seasons. When you think about what people pay their money on, what you want, what is your ultimate job as a president and then a general manager is to do, is to win football games. And they are miles behind on that and points. Charlotte played one season less, have a better record since 2021 than Toronto FC. And so that really is the reason why Bill Manning isn't here. It's almost borderline, in terms of how bad it is, in terms of the way that they've gone about it, that it's negligence, really, in the way that this club has been handled. You have, as a president of a club, whoever gets that next job, you have to evaluate your own talent better than anybody else. And I don't think that they did a very good job of that. And they've not done a good job of that for 5 seasons. They believed that their own players were better than they were. They had poor incoming signings, horrendous, that they're now paying for. Arguably one of the worst signings in the history of Canadian sports that continues to play for them. And this is why now the repercussions are there. And it might not end there. But the people who spend all of their good money on watching that team, they deserve to be far, far better than what they are getting to watch.
It's big money, too.
Yeah.
The fans are spending a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Jordan?
I think for me, when you're a president, you want to cultivate a winning environment, and you want that to trickle down to who you hire as a head coach, who's staff, everyone. Also, if you go and bring in players and make a big splash to try to do a quick fix, you can see what could happen, and it backfires. And I think that's what's been happening with TFC. Spending on one player or two players what you could spend on a starting lineup, think is a quick fix that you just run into issues. Building your team and trying to have a winning environment is the recipe for success, bit by bit. No quick fixes. I think for me, TFC, as of late, has just had a bit too much of that.
Just to walk you through some of the flashpoints. COVID hits. All the Canadian teams need to play outside the country. Manning said at that time it would set back Toronto FC years. I'm not sure he thought this much. Vanny left, replaced him with Chris Armas. Armas had a spat with Josie Altidore. They backed the coach, and they backed the player. Then Armas was out after 6 months. And then they try this Hail Mary to turn things around by signing Lorenzo Insigne. And it, quite frankly, didn't work. The last Hail Mary was bringing in John Herdman. He's the latest 007 at the club, 0-0 and 7 losses. Like, it's just been one thing after another where it's like, you're in quicksand, KJ, and you try one thing to get yourself out of trouble and you just sink deeper.
For sure, but they're not where they are right now because of COVID.
No, but that was the first domino.
I agree with you. It was the first domino, but I want to make it really clear that they have had many resources that other clubs in Major League Soccer haven't. Many. Many of them would much rather swap with them any moment, whether it be the fan base that they've got, the deep pocket that they've got, the ability to bring them to that city. The other thing they have an issue with for me is they're not likable in a sense of an organization. Like, what do you stand for? You know, and a lot of their games are disappearing. You can't see them. You don't see the players on billboards as much. They're not marketed as well. You know, this is a different era. I get it. But when they were winning, everybody knew about their major players. And whether they don't want to market these players because they're not performing at another level, it might be something. But the Apple deal has allowed them, a lot of people and a lot of things to go behind areas where people can't see them. You don't see them anymore, these players. And
KJ,
that's a big problem.
I mean, I've done work for Toronto FC over the years, and it was weird. When they struggled, it's like they didn't want to tell stories about the team. But that's not how professional sports works. You constantly need to be telling stories of your players, what your club's all about, because there are fans that care.
They do care.
Now there are literally 2 people that cover the team on a regular basis when you go down there. Neil Davidson of the Canadian Press and John Molinaro. Like, people that follow the team, like, they've gone away. So where does that leave you? And that's the biggest question. How did Toronto FC get out of this? Keith Pelly's the new president at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He's now the boss. He's inevitably the one that, you know, showed Bill Manning the door. How does he help fix the many issues, Jordan, that this club faces right now?
I'm not sure, because I think a lot of it has to do with the clientele and the players that you have. And I know through the contracts, I know sometimes it could be a bit daunting looking at the MLS contracts and players that are bound to it. But I think they're tied up for a bit. I don't know, for me, maybe you're pushing for a playoff spot with TFC this season with the squad that they have. But certain players, when I look at what they're getting and what they're on and how they really can't bring in that much more because of all the money that they've already spent, I don't see TFC having a successful end of the season.
You've got to have a major plan, and the next president has got to go in there with a clear clarity. With clear clarity, you've got to connect better with the people who pay your tickets prices, with the community. You've got to have a clear identity about what the next team will look like, and you absolutely fundamentally cannot make decisions based on what you have right now only because of the issues that you've got. What I mean by that is, don't go sign a player because he fits that area only because you can afford that area because of what you've done in the past, because you're just compounding problems on top problems onto problems onto problems. That's a big problem right there for me, and the major concern is the most expensive player there, and,
Sure.
And does he come back in 2025, whether you decide to let him go or not, regardless of whether you're paying him.
There is an argument that when Larray and Osorio come back in this team, they'll be improved. We have been led on and told that there will be a defensive signing next week. And I've been told by a source that there could be a surprise signing coming through the door this transfer window now. Is that enough? And I just wonder that. John Herdman's now in charge. He leaves the Canada job to take this gig. All of a sudden, his boss is gone. And you just wonder, does this give him more license to bring in more players that he wants, KJ? Or if you're John Herdman, are you looking around you saying, where am I right now? What is going on here?
No, I think he's pretty comfortable where he is. I mean, he's brand new to the organization relatively this season, but, you know, he wields a lot of power inside that organization. And so, you know, it's now up to him and Jason Hernandez to continue to be on the same page, and I certainly hope that they are, to continue that fix, understanding that this is not a quick fix, no doubt about it.
It's not at all. It's not a quick fix. This is a long haul, but again, the way that this team has been built and the way that they've decided to bring in certain players, for me, it kind of has to start from the beginning. There's
potential there. I just don't know how you start from the beginning when you still have such important players who are, you know, going out and trying to sign Insigne. I know not everyone is unanimous about this. KJ thought it would work, but you're like, Lorenzo Insigne is coming to Toronto FC, and it's just hasn't worked.
Well, you have to do your due diligence in signings. You have to make sure people come to the country before you sign them. Maybe not sign a player that stayed in the one position the entire time of his career. There's lots of areas that you can do better in terms of that.
So we'll see. Toronto FC still very much part of the playoff picture, and we'll see what kind of knock-on effect this has through the club. One Soccer Today, we back Mondays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. Your daily brief or debrief on everything Canada soccer is right here on One Soccer. Your best and worst of the week is coming up next.
Canadian soccer fans, we're different. We cheer on the Reds while cheering out our motherlands and each other's lands. Soccer is in our hearts. Our roots are on display, not to divide, but to unite. Because to us, soccer's more than just a game. It's who we are. From coast to coast to coast, it connects us all. Cheers to us. Cheers to the game.
This ultimate mouth-watering moment is brought to you by the big, bold, ultimate taste of ultimate chicken hot dogs. Only from Maple Lodge Farms.
For sport played with our feet, funny how lending a hand takes us further together.
Gatorade, with electrolytes to help replenish what's lost in sweat, carbs to help fuel your working muscles, and fluids to help you hydrate. Scientifically formulated so you never stop competing.
I do this for my town, my time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Rehydrate, replenish, refuel. Gatorade.
Degree 72-hour non-stop protection. Antiperspirant with motion sense. Tested to the limit. Degree keeps working when others stop.
It's best and worst of the week time. This was a hit, a fan favorite for just about everyone. Now Euro winner, Lamine Yamal. Well, we have baby Lamine Yamal pictures with Lionel Messi back in 2007. It was for charity at the time. And this is just unreal how the world works and how this plays out this way. Incredible. What were you doing in 2007, KJ?
Oh, I don't know, but what a player to have, and just turned 17 yesterday and is a European champion.
It's wild.
I had the privilege of seeing Messi at that age, and he wasn't as good as this guy at 17.
Wow, you think so?
He's going to be that 17.
No, I get what you're saying.
Right. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going there. But I'm just saying, at 17, To watch this player play as a 16-year-old in the European Championship, it's remarkable.
Yeah, such confidence in this tournament he's come with.
The kid is all right, and that's a great photo as well. Let's talk Cozy Thompson of Toronto FC. Some big comments he made after falling 2-1 to Forge about what Canadian football looks like, what a starting 11 looks like. Let's hear from Cozy Thompson and what he made of Forge.
Credit to them. They beat us 2-1. They took their 2 opportunities and they took them well. It is, aside from last night, or sorry, 2 nights ago, it's nice to see that Canadian football is starting to increase and become better, but I still don't think that it's anywhere close to first team football in Canada in terms of Montreal, Vancouver, Toronto. I still don't think so, and it shouldn't be the case.
Cozy's a good kid, but he's been taking lots of heat for those comments, Jordan.
You just took an L. I'm sorry, like you just lost.
Yeah.
Like for me, this is just eat humble pie. Don't comment about that. KJ, I'm sorry. Like for me, it's just one of those, just stick to what you're doing on the pitch. Don't say anything.
I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say. I'd say if I was working with him, I think that he probably should try and word it a little bit better. I think because he says it's nowhere near close to first-team football in Canada. The facts are first-team football in Canada is the Canadian Premier League. Like, you play 3 teams in a Major League Soccer in a United States league. And, okay, that is the highest level of club football in Canada. No one's going to dispute that with the money that you spend. But in order to change this conversation and give more respect on the CPL, I think the wording that maybe he would probably want that back. But I don't think that was his intent.
That's what I thought as well. Why is that being communicated that way?
Yeah.
I kind of feel bad for him. He wants to make his message clear and stand up for his team, but it came out completely wrong. It's one of those you love to have a do-over. Like me on this show, just about each and every episode. Shakira, okay, she's playing an extended 25-minute halftime. Well, they extended halftime to 25 minutes, so Shakira can play at the halftime of Copa America. Are you having this, KJ?
What do you reckon?
I'm going to say,
I think you're all for it.
What's the opposite of I?
I just, nay.
Nay.
I thought VAR had killed football.
Oh, KJ.
We're doing 25-minute half-times in a major tournament. Is this what we're doing now?
For Shakira.
I don't care who it's for.
Whatever.
This is ridiculous, guys.
Jordan?
Like, this
I don't mind it, buddy.
I'm sorry. Like,
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it. It's Shakira.
Don't mind it. You know what they say? Whenever, wherever. I'm cool
You
with
couldn't
it.
even name enough songs from her to make a 25-minute hit.
Waka Waka, Hips Don't Lie.
Shocking.
I got my Shakira. It's been widely reported Jurgen Klopp turned down the U.S. head coaching gig. Of course, Greg Berhalter was let go early in the week. Any ideas, guys, who a suitable candidate would be?
Ooh.
Anyone?
Not my Jesse Marsh. That's all I'll
If you're
say.
Klopp, like, can you understand why he turned it down, KJ?
Yes. 100%. I'd be like, you got the wrong number? I'd be like, no offense, it's Jurgen Klopp. Like, I love the ambition, but, like, are they calling Pep as well? Like, come on.
It's
like,
so wild. Like, you see these lists compiled online. It's like, here's Phil Jackson's number. Like, just listing any great coach. Oh, it's a riot. Benjamin Moore. Look, head coaches across the Canadian Premier League have great heads of hair. Benjamin Mora has entered the queue. He's using the water bottle, not to take a drink during the game, to style that hair. I mean, we have Guppy, we have my guy James Merriman,
love that.
Tommy Wheeldon Jr. Is Mora usurping any one of those 3 individuals?
I think so, but I think also with the manager, what needs to be talked about is presence. Like, homeboy's a bit jacked.
Oh.
Is they're moving their hair. Like, if I'm a former York United man, if I'm going to play for a guy and I know there's a scuffle, I don't know if there's a manager that's taking Benjamin Moore.
No.
This is why I said
like he's coming in like this,
It's perfect for him. Perfect.
He's coming in, he's like, hey, you trying to hype up in the locker room? He's there flexing.
Suddenly you got these guys all buying in.
I love it.
If you're going to do the job, look the part, and he absolutely does. Look at this, St. John's, Newfoundland this weekend. Over 4,500 fans came out to King George V Park, where Canada punched their ticket to the 1986 World Cup to watch Halifax Wanderers under-21s beat Ipswich Town under-21s 2-1 the final. Congratulations to the Wanderers on the win. How cool is this? More Canadian markets showing up and showing out when it comes to Canadian domestic football,
Absolutely,
KJ.
bro. This is what we're talking about. No matter, filter down from the national team all the way down. Go out there and support football wherever it is.
The ecosystem, baby. We love it.
Have you ever been to The Rock?
I haven't.
No? Me neither.
I've been in New
I'd love to
Brunswick.
go.
No, not anything.
Again, please just take me anywhere out of this studio. Just get me out of here. Guess who won the Euros? The answer, not England. We'll dissect that next. It's match night here on One Soccer.
Tony Bet.
At Tony Bet, get treated like a VIP. Bet on live games with odds on all sorts of sports. That's what you get when you bet with
Tony Bet.
Hey, let's go somewhere beachy. I don't like sand. What? What about Cancun sand? It's so soft. Or maybe Caribbean white sand. Sure. Ooh, Costa Rican sand. It's got dolphins.
Costa Rica, then?
Yeah, Costa Rica.
Good choice.
It was all him.
With over 50 sunny destinations to choose from, we have a flight for that.
Do we really have any choice at all?
Everyone has a choice, and every choice has a consequence.
Which do you choose?
Life's full of tough choices, isn't it?
How do you choose?
Gatorade. With electrolytes to help replenish what's lost in sweat. Carbs to help fuel your working muscles. And fluids to help you hydrate. Scientifically formulated so you never stop competing.
I do this for my town, my time, my time. None of you people can tell me to stop.
Rehydrate, replenish, refuel. Gatorade.
Canadian soccer fans, we're different. We cheer on the Reds while cheering out our motherlands and each other's lands. Soccer is in our hearts. Our roots are on display. Not to divide, but to unite. Because to us, soccer's more than just a game. It's who we are. From coast to coast to coast, it connects us all. Cheers to us. Cheers to the game.
Degree, 72-hour non-stop protection. Antiperspirant with motion sense. Tested to the limit. Degree, keeps working when others stop.
This is the final score presented by Tony Bet. Here's a reminder of how things finished up in this weekend's CPL action. Remember, you can win $100,000 or a trip to the 2024 CPL final by playing Tony Bet's CPL Predictor. Visit predictor.canpl.ca for more info. The finals of the Euro played out on Sunday, and Spain were victorious by a score of 2-1. They win yet again. They won every game they played in the tournament, deserved winners. But we have no time for praise here. We have to break down why England lost again and whether they will ever win a Euro or World Cup. KJ, the drought continues.
Yeah, it does. And they were significantly underwhelming, unfortunately, in the game. Eventually, you know, you've got to put your hands up and say the team with more technical quality, the ability to pass and move and drive forward and, you know, just had better midfield and just move forward. And that they were just a far better team and they deserve to win it. But it's sad from an England point of view, but I have to say I've admired Spain and the way they create players and produce players unlike any other European team. And other European countries just do not produce the kind of caliber players that they do, and every credit to them.
And that's 4 titles now for the Euros, but in terms of England, I said that round of 16, they're probably it's coming home, they could do it. But I was saying that predicated on they were going to have one match that they stood out, and they didn't just have that for the tournament. I mean, so for me, it goes to Spain, who were deserved winners. But I was just hoping England had a squad to do it, just to give it a little bit more, but it just never came.
If you come from behind in the last 16 and you do it again in the quarterfinals, and then you do it again in the semifinals, and then you ask to do it again in the final, the likelihood is that you're not good enough to win it.
Rodri, best player in the world, just incredible. De La Fuente deserves his flowers. What a job he did. But as a young man, I grew up caring more about England football than anything, the national team, because Canada was off the radar, Wales was off the radar, and they finally had me here for the final. Like, I started to believe, and then poof, it was snatched away just like that. The way it continues. 2026, KJ, what about over here?
Let's do it.
Canada, England final? Woo! Ooh, it would be the KJ Derby. A really good one in Hamilton in front of Jesse Marsh. Pacific won a goal up, but it was Kwesi Poku with the second half brace that gave Forge a 2-1 win. We'll be back to do this all again next week. On behalf of Jordan Wilson and the one, the only Christian Jack, I am Gareth Wheeler. This is the Match Night on One Soccer.
Despite it not being an international A, it is still a very high caliber opponent that Canada will be facing here this afternoon. Of course, we remember